My friend, allow me to begin with a truth that may sting. You will never master your life until you master yourself. And you will never master yourself if you continue relying on motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It rises with emotion and vanishes at the first sign of resistance. You cannot build anything enduring on something so temporary. To depend on motivation is to build your house upon the sand and be surprised when the wind comes. Real mastery of your work, your health, your character comes not from bursts of inspiration, but from steady effort applied in silence, when no one is watching and no reward is immediate. Let me tell you about a man named Frederick Hartley. His name is not found in books or statues, but his story carries the weight of everything I have come to believe. Frederick was a blacksmith in the northern hills. Not a man of letters, not a scholar, not a public speaker, just a man who worked with fire and iron. But in that furnace, he forged more than tools. He forged a life of discipline. He rose every morning at 4, not because he felt like it, not because he had a journal of goals, but because he had decided years earlier that his word to himself would be stronger than his excuses. His work was harsh, and the winters were cruel. There were mornings when the wind cut through the valley like a blade, the kind of cold that makes your joints stiffen and your willpower crumble. But Frederick still lit the forge. He was not chasing glory. He wasn't driven by applause. He worked because he believes that what we become is not decided in moments of comfort, but in hours of resistance. He believed that the strongest man is the one who does what must be done, whether he feels like it or not. One day, a younger apprentice joined him. The boy was bright but soft, quick to complain when the work grew heavy or the coal ran low. "How do you do it, sir?" the boy asked one bitter morning. "How do you keep showing up when everything in you wants to stay in bed?" Frederick looked at him, hammer in hand, and said something I have never forgotten. "Because I decided long ago that my future would never belong to my feelings." That is the core of self-mastery. It is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about refusing to be ruled by them. You see, the man who waits for motivation is like the farmer who waits for perfect weather. He never plants, never reaps. But the man who acts regardless of mood, that is the man who becomes master of his days. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like it?" Discipline says, "I will do it anyway." When you rely on motivation, you are asking the world to push you. When you rely on self-mastery, you are pushing yourself. Let me ask you, do you know how much time you have wasted waiting to feel ready? How many days you've surrendered to moods, to fatigue, to distraction? Each time you let a fleeting feeling override a firm decision, you surrender a piece of your future. You let weakness dress itself in comfort and convince you it's just being kind. But life does not reward comfort. It rewards consistency. The truth is simple, though not easy. Those who master themselves do not have more time, or more talent, or even more energy. They simply have more resolve. Resolve is what lights the forge when the air is cold. Resolve is what moves the feet when the mind is tired. Resolve is what builds lives worth living. If you wish to rise, truly rise, you must stop waiting to feel inspired. Instead, begin acting from your intentions, not your emotions. Let Frederick's quiet life be your reminder greatness is not always loud. Sometimes it is a man alone in the cold, doing his duty without applause day after day after day. That is how you master yourself, when no one is watching, when the feeling is gone, when only the decision remains. Let me take you now to another life. One far from the forge and fire of Frederick, but no less filled with discipline. Her name was Clara Whitmore. Clara was not born into ease. She grew up in the back room of a bakery her mother cleaned at night. Her father, a merchant sailor, had vanished in a storm when she was just 7. They never found the ship. Life taught Clara early that no one was coming to save her. She had to become her own rescue. At 15, she set a goal, small but bold. She would become a physician. In those days, few women were allowed in such places. Fewer still could afford the training, but Clara's mind was sharp, and her will was steel. She worked 3 jobs, tutoring children by candlelight, cleaning rooms at a local inn, and serving bread at dawn before school. Her friends would ask, "Why do you push yourself so hard? Why not rest a little?" And she would always reply, "Because no one will hand me the life I want. I must build it, one quiet decision at a time." But Clara had no mentor, no map, no guarantees. And what's more, there were days when motivation left her completely. One winter, her mother fell ill. Clara was 17 and had to care for her while studying for entrance exams. Every morning she was up before the sun, boiling water, tending to fevers, reciting anatomy while wiping the floors. She was exhausted. Her body ached. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. And yet, she never missed a study hour. Her classmates, many from wealthy families, often said things like, "You're just lucky, you're so focused." But luck had nothing to do with it. She was focused because she trained herself to be. She succeeded not because she felt inspired, but because she refused to betray her future self. There was a night she told me about, years later when everything nearly broke. She had failed a critical exam by a single point. She sat alone in the alley behind a bakery, tears frozen to her cheeks, doubt clawing at her spirit. She wanted to quit. She truly did. But she didn't. She went home, made tea from scraps, opened her books, and started again. Why? Because she had decided, long before that night, that her commitment would outlast her emotion. That was her edge. She did not win because she had less to carry. She won because she kept walking with the weight. Years later, Clara became one of the first female surgeons in her region. Not because someone opened a door for her, but because she kicked the door open with her own discipline. And do you know what she once told me sitting by a quiet window in her small office? Discipline is not a burden. It's the purest form of self-respect. Every time I chose effort over ease, I was saying to myself, "I'm matter enough to try." That, my friend, is where real mastery begins. Not in the noise of motivation, not in grand speeches or bursts of excitement, but in the quiet dignity of daily effort. The ones who rise in life are not always the loudest or the smartest or the most talented. Often, they are the ones who simply refused to give up when it stopped being easy. Clara's story is not rare because effort is rare. It's rare because commitment is. But everyone wants to succeed. Few are willing to suffer through the boredom, the silence, the repetition, the loneliness that discipline demands. But I tell you this, the longer you stay consistent, the more powerful you become. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust is worth more than any inspiration. Trust in your ability to act regardless of mood. This is the cornerstone of a strong life. You are not what you feel. You are what you repeatedly do. And when motivation fails, that's when the real builders of destiny get to work. Now, my friend, we arrive at the point where most men stop, and where the few who rise begin. Because here is the truth that no one tells you. You will not always feel like it. You will not always be inspired. You will wake up some days and feel hollow, aimless, tired. And that is where the path splits. Most wait for the fire to return. But the disciplined, the self-mastered, they build their fire. I have lived long enough to see that the men and women who shape history are not the ones with the loudest dreams. They are the ones who act when no one is watching, who hold themselves to a standard even in the silence. Discipline is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is uncelebrated. It is often thankless. But discipline, my friend, is the groundwork of greatness. It is the difference between a man who wishes for change and one who becomes the change. Now, I want you to reflect for a moment. Have you been treating motivation as your master? Have you been letting it dictate when and how you move? If so, you've handed the keys of your life to something fragile and fleeting. I wrote long ago that the spirit of self-help is the root of all advancement. I still believe it, but let me add this. Self-help begins where motivation ends. Self-mastery begins the moment you stop negotiating with your feelings and start honoring your decisions. You do not become disciplined by reading books or watching speeches. You become disciplined by keeping promises to yourself even when no one claps, even when no one sees. It's easy to post your goals. Harder to keep them alive at 5 a.m. when it's cold and you're tired and no one would blame you for sleeping in. But that is the sacred ground where your future is being built. Every small action, every repetition, every time you do what must be done without applause, there you lay another brick in the foundation of a powerful life. And let me say this clearly. You will never master the world until you master yourself. You will never command your destiny if you cannot command your morning, your habits, your thoughts. Freedom is not the absence of rules. It is the presence of discipline. True liberty begins the moment you choose responsibility over excuses. So the next time motivation fails you, and it will, remember, you're not helpless. You're not weak. You are simply at the gate where strength begins. Choose action. Choose effort. Choose respect for your own life. You do not need more motivation. What you need is a standard that does not bend to your moods. And when you live by that standard, you become unstoppable.